So now we're going to look at the second part of our final theme, the skills of resolving conflict. But first, we're going to listen to a conflict in action to see what we can learn from this. This is a really lovely starter. It's a transcript of a US naval ship with Canadian authorities off the coast of Newfoundland in October 1995. So the story goes. Americans, please divert your course 15 degrees to the north to avoid a collision. Canadians, recommend you divert your course 15 degrees to the south to avoid a collision. Americans, this is the captain of a US Navy ship. I say again, divert your course. Canadians, no, I say again, divert your course. Americans, this is the aircraft carrier USS Abraham Lincoln, the second largest ship in the United States Atlantic Fleet. We are accompanied by 3 destroyers, 3 cruisers, and numerous support vessels. I demand that you change your course 15 degrees north. That's 15 degrees north, or countermeasures will be undertaken to ensure the safety of this ship. Canadians, this is a lighthouse. Your call. And you can watch that actually. There's quite a few of them on YouTube, or you can present it in different ways. As a starter, you can cut up the transcript and give it to 2 children, and then as they get near to the punchline, if you like, you can say, who do you think should give way, and what they learn from it, which I would think is probably ask questions before you start making demands. So the link to the progression steps in the What Matters statements, mainly within What Matters Statement 5, which focuses on healthy relationships. Won't stop on those. You can have a look at those later, or on these, which are the SEL learning outcomes across the different age ranges. And of course, these carry on in year 7, 8, and 9. And some of the most important skills in this area are being able to see somebody else's perspective, standing in their shoes, reframing situations to see them in a different way. Use of language is really, really important when trying to resolve conflict. We look at something called iMessages in SEL, which I'll introduce to you if you haven't come across them before. And then, of course, looking for those kind of win-win outcomes, even if they're a bit of a compromise and you get part of what you want, not completely everything you want. So first we need to be able to see a situation from more than one perspective. And these are some lovely resources from the year 2 materials, which are great as a starter activity, illustrating what's meant by perspective. So you see different things depending on how you look. Different people see different things when they look at these pictures. And have a look at them for a moment. You might see an old lady on the right. You might see a young woman with her head turned away and a red necklace. I won't say what the other one is. You can have a look at it and see if you can decide. But I think the interesting thing is that once you've seen it one way, it's actually quite hard to get your perspective to shift to seeing it a different way. And of course, that's true in a non-metaphorical sense as well. Another one in year 2, it's suggested that you get 2 large sets of footprints and leave them in the classroom. You can use them then to help children to listen to each other's point of views. You can use it, say, in 2 different characters in literacy, or if they've seen a programme or a film or a game that they particularly like, looking at the situation from different characters' perspectives. But you can also use it to deal with ongoing difficulties or things that arise at break or playtime. I think I'm going to give you an example. Yeah, let's go on and give you an example here. I hope you can read that. I'm going to give you a minute or so just to read through those role play cards. These are again from year 2, and one child would read out each while standing in the footprint. So just take a moment to have a look at those, read through those. So I hope that's given you time to get the gist of the two characters there. So we'll call one child Christina, the other one Marvin, as the SEAL materials do. So you might use this with the footprints and a sort of hot seating of characters in roles. So you might ask the girl these sort of questions. What did you do that made things worse? Hard one to answer that when we apply it to ourselves quite often. How do you think Marvin felt when you put the phone down on him? Why do you think he felt like that? Do you understand why he felt like that now? Does it change the way that you feel about Marvin? What would you do differently if it happened again? And how could you have made things better? Those are all really good questions for any sort of conflict situation. And then you might get them to ask Marvin, well, hot seating Marvin, things like, how do you think Christina felt when you didn't turn up to give her back the book? Why do you think she felt like that? Do you understand why she put the phone down on you? Does it change the way you feel? And what could you do differently next time? Now there's another example in year 6, because we would recommend that you keep those footprints in there. Personally, I'd keep them in there till year 11 and even have a set in the staff room, I think, because they are just so useful for physically standing in somebody else's shoes. So there's another example. There's examples throughout the SEAL materials, but I particularly like this one from year 6. So the children are given this situation. Group of girls standing in the playground. One girl points and they all look round at a girl standing alone. The new year 6 girl. She thinks they're looking at her old trainers, which she's embarrassed about. One of the girls whispers something to another behind her hand, and the girls start walking towards her. So we talk about what the new girl's interpretation might be, along the lines of, they're making fun of me, they're going to have a go at me. She might feel embarrassed or threatened or angry. And because of those thoughts and feelings, she may walk up and hit one of the girls. So that's the outcome of this particular scenario. But in fact, what actually happened when we hear the other side of the story is that one girl was saying, as she pointed, hey, look, that's that new girl. She must be feeling shy. And they all look round, and then the second girl, whispering behind her hand, says, hey, she looks really strong. She could be just what we need for the football team. And the third girl says, yeah, let's go and ask her if she fancies a game. And they start walking towards her. So you've got a lovely example there of reframing. And these carry on really through, right up to year 11. You can use these. There's some fantastic ones here. I hope we'll be able to watch this one now, the Guardian 1986 Points of View advert. And there's a young person who appears to be trying to wrestle a man's briefcase off him, but in fact the outcome is something quite different. And the moral is you need the whole picture, and you've got to look at it from all perspectives. And then there's another one there, a link, which we won't watch now. It's quite complex and a bit longer, but really, really good to use with older children in secondary schools. Another one that's really good, which again probably for secondary, is this little film, which is great. Again, too long to show now. It's probably about 6 or 7 minutes, I think, but it's great. It's the boy here reacting to kind of being ignored, as he sees it, by the girl sitting on the bench, and he goes for his run, comes back, she still ignores him, and of course it turns out that she's actually deaf. And there's a lovely moment where he kind of recalibrates and realizes his mistake, and it's great for demonstrating a reframing of the situation. So lots and lots on perspective and reframing. The other skill is that of using language that's non-inflammatory, and this is one that we developed through SEAL, and great one. You may well have come across it. It has a number of guises, but usually called I messages or magic messages. And what the thinking is that if you start with a you statement, the other person immediately becomes very defensive. So you're always late. No, I'm not. Got two there. Two provocative statements. That's the you and the always, because of course they can always argue they're not always late at all. If you start with, if you use this structure, I feel when you, the action, because, and then your reason for feeling like that, much less provocative, and you're much less in danger of provoking that defensive reaction. So if I used to say to my 16-year-old daughter, for example, you make me so angry, you're so thoughtless, you never ring when you're going to be late, I wouldn't see it for dust. But if I said, I feel worried when you don't ring me to say you're going to be late because I imagine you might have been hurt, I've got a lot more chance of her engaging with conversation. Not that she always did, but gave myself a better chance doing that. So this is introduced in Year 6. And one teacher that I was speaking to said, oh, yeah, it's absolutely great. It's my favourite bit of the whole thing. And I said, oh, wow, you know, your Year 6s must be really, really skilled. And she said, no, I haven't taught the Year 6s yet. She said, no, this is just about the staff. They absolutely love it. And now, you know, that you just can't shout it, can you? I thought that's so true. You've got to kind of think through what you're going to say. It doesn't come out on that kind of, that automatic, that default position. So yeah, so really, really good for staff as well to, you know, kind of get them using this structure, modelling it, of course, but also developing relationships. So here, in Year 6, they get a few examples here. You're always late, letting me down. You're totally unreliable. And then the children have to kind of reframe them in using this language structure in a non-provocative way. So quite a nice one. And again, you know, for examining language, when you're talking to children about what's gone wrong, you know, looking at how we respond to particular words, particular things that people say. And of course, the way they're said as well, because prosody has a lot of impact on the message that we take away. I'm sure you've all seen the bit about the, you know, what percentage of a message is through the words, what's through the body language, and what's through the tone. And if not, I shall leave you to look it up. Interesting. The next skill is understanding the concept of the win-win outcome and trying to find win-win outcomes to conflicts. So we've looked at one win-win situation, which was the cooperative arm wrestling, and there's actually quite a lot of resources on the internet to kind of help engage children in this, finding the win-win. This little clip, I like this. This is the first 55 seconds. Don't watch it beyond that because it gets quite complicated. It's an adult video, but the first bit is really simple and really helpful. And a short retelling of the famous orange quarrel, which you may or may not have heard about. So yeah, watch the clip and see if it's something that you might like to use in your setting. Loads of them on the net, as always. Here's two of my favourites. This is on the right here, the parable of the long spoons, where all these people are trying to feed themselves and they're just failing. They can't get any food because the spoons are just too long, so they all starve. And of course, the solution is that if they adopt the win-win situation and they fed each other, then they would live and be much happier. So a nice little, everyone ends up happy in that little scenario. And then the donkey example is really simple again, but effective. So they're tied together, they can both see a lovely juicy hedge, and they want to go to their hedge and eat all of it. So that would be a win-lose situation, and of course it doesn't work at all. So they sit down together and have a think. What do you think they might do? They both walk over to one, eat half of that each, and then they walk over to the other and eat half of that. So they're lovely examples, and there's quite a lot more about that you can find to illustrate that. And again, all of this is about, you know, building it into children's days. So when there is an issue, on the playground or in the yard, then, you know, these are the kinds of things that you can refer to, the hooks that you can hang this learning on. And that brings us to the whole school tool, which is provided in the SEL materials for primary. There's also a secondary version, and it's in English and Welsh. And this model is simple but very effective. So where it's been introduced across the whole school, maybe in an assembly, and then the component parts taught in a structured way, which happens through the curriculum booklets, it works incredibly well. Children, you know, they really take to this sort of stuff and quite soon become a lot better than most of the adults in their lives at resolving conflicts. So we know that first stage ready is about managing our anger and making sure we're calm enough to actually want to begin the process of solving the problem. The steady bit is all the language stuff. Don't use language that inflames, about listening. There's lots in this theme about good listening and how to do it. Seeing the other person's perspective, which we've had a look at, and coming up on go with a win-win solution that you're both happy with, or at least both reasonably happy. So you might be getting 50% of what you want and the other person getting 50% of what they want. The go is putting it into action, and then the replay, this is the bit that we're really bad at. Generally, it kind of gets forgotten, but it's really important that we look at, you know, how did that go? So if you are mediating between children at school, you know, always book in that little bit in a 2 days, 3 days, whatever. Have a quick chat. It might be 2 minutes just to say, how did it go? Usually it will have gone okay. And then a little bit of thinking about what it was that made it go okay is really helpful to kind of consolidate and reinforce the skills. Some schools make this peaceful problem solving process really whole school by setting up little corners around the school or in classrooms where children can actually go and solve their real life fallings out. This school, it was fantastic. They had taught children right from very young at a basic level how to resolve conflicts with each other, peaceful problem solving. And they had a timer in this one, and I think it was 3 minutes. And if they hadn't managed to solve their difficulty within 3 minutes, they knew that they could go and get an adult who'd help them then, or, you know, at some stage in the near future. And this school also actually had 2 little peace doves, and when the children had made up, they just swapped the peace doves with each other and then hung them back up, which is rather lovely. So nice idea for, you know, really keeping learning alive. And we're going to look at peer mediation to finish off this section, but I just wanted to remind people and draw attention to this focus for noticing and rewarding. It's worth designating a week or however long to having that sorting out a conflict, everybody focusing on catching children or adults solving a conflict. And I would also, you know, recommend putting up the peaceful problem solving in the staff room, and, you know, is quite, you can have a bit of fun with people congratulating each other on solving some issues in the way that we're teaching children too. So it's lovely modelling, and it's lovely adult skill development too. So going to finish this section with a quick look at a scheme in a primary school in Bristol, in fact a school I worked at, and the video shows some of what's involved in training up peer mediators to help other children to solve conflicts, and it brings together quite a lot of what we've looked at in this section, so enjoy the video.